it's really important for politicians to find consensus where they can so that we can deliver for our constituents and for the public more generally. And it's very difficult to see how you can support a Prime Minister, a government or a party that has allowed that person to corrode our overall principles in democracy.
Now let's increase the family of commentators on this programme this evening by talking to Wendy Chamberlain, the Liberal Democrat MP for North East 5. Wendy, was that you laughing just then?
Yeah, it was, just because you've given me... I'm all caught up now, so thanks very much.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just wanted to give you the tail of the tape to let you know what's been happening. Because we've been trying to respond, trying to connect, trying to give people a good sense of what's happening and why it matters. Because Boris Johnson himself often says that people aren't bothered with the froth and bubble of, scandals or what's going on, this minister, that minister. The public wants levelling up. The public wants to get Brexit done, finished, signed, sealed and delivered. The public wants to know about Ukraine and what the British government's doing. The public wants to know about NATO, G7, etc. But what do you think the public wants to know this evening?
I think the public want to know when Boris Johnson is going to resign. But I think it's really interesting what you're talking there in terms of that Boris Johnson seems to think that the public are willing to accept the appalling behaviours that we've seen over many months now over delivering on policy. But the reality is they're not delivering on policy because they're too busy dealing with the corrosion of the Conservative Party led by the Prime Minister. And we've had two members of the Cabinet resign this evening, the Chancellor and the Health Secretary. And in some ways they've been congratulated, but I'm not sure they deserve congratulations. They should have resigned a long time ago, and they chose not to do so. And there's plenty of other MPs who haven't done so yet.
Why do you say they should have resigned a long time ago? Remember, Cabinet, government, collective responsibility. Rishi Sunak does say in his own letter, even when I disagreed with you privately, I supported you publicly, because, of course, it's about that collective responsibility. It's the overall programme. And of course, he is the one, not them, who delivered the 80-seat majority, was twice Mayor of London. And that's the aura he's had, that of being a winner. You don't tear it down so easily.
Well, this is a narrative that I think is false in terms of this single leader that delivers things. But why should they have resigned sooner? Because collective responsibility, yes, is important, but it's about that corrosion that I just described, being sort of forced to defend on a regular basis the indefensible. And I think a really good example of that is the urgent question today with Michael Ellis, the Paymaster General, where actually we've laughed before in the chamber about the fact that he is put up to respond to these urgent questions. But actually what he did on a couple of occasions, I think with Luke Pollard and Charlotte Nichols, two Labour MPs, who are raising really serious issues about safety and safeguarding here on the parliamentary estate. And he basically dismissed their concerns out of hand as them party politicking. And actually, it's of a concern to all of us as MPs who get involved in politics for the right reasons, who want to make a change and a difference, and believe that democratic principles are important to see what we've seen over the last few days. So I think there are more MPs that should be resigning. For example, Maria Caulfield and Lewis, her boss, the Health Secretary, has resigned. Why is she still sitting there as a minister? So it's quite clear that only the Conservative Party, Henry, can remove Boris Johnson, and they need to get on with doing that now.
When you look at what's happened, when you look at the letter this morning from Lord MacDonald, the former head of the Foreign Office, a senior civil servant, when you look at what's led us to this point, do you see it merely as the foibles of one man and a few people that he's appointed, or is it more about something deeper, the very tribalistic, narrow agendas of political parties, so that when people get to the very top, they are the absolute believers. And that is why many of them get warped.
Yeah, I think you could argue it's the former, but I certainly think increasingly it is more of the latter. That what is it about our political culture that enables people with those kind of principles to end up in power? I think that is exactly what we should be asking ourselves. And that's why I think this goes far beyond political froth and bubble. It's actually about the very nature of our democracy. How can we stand up in support of Ukraine against Russia? We believe in our democratic principles and we believe that Russia doesn't hold them. As soon as we start messing about with those, or one person does, and people row in behind to support that, well, it's very difficult to call us Global Britain, isn't it?
Well, I'm just wondering now what the calculation is for you, Wendy, and your party. You're a Liberal Democrat MP for North East Fife. You guys have had a good run recently.
Yes.
Not Reece and Tiverton and
Yes, I think
Houghton.
we said something about showing Boris the door a couple of weeks ago.
Showing Boris the door. Now, how many MPs do you have in Parliament?
We currently have 14.
You've got 14, haven't you? And that's out of 650. It's still a
Yes.
long way back for you. When you look at the trouble that the Conservative Party is in, particularly at the top, do you see opportunities? How are you going to use them?
Well, I'm going to go back to what I said here in terms of what people want to see. They want to see strategy, they want to see policy, and they want to see delivery, particularly during cost of living crisis and post-pandemic. And they're not getting that from this government. So I don't accept this thing that, just because I'm an opposition MP, I want to keep Boris Johnson in for the good of my party. I'm also a Scottish MP, Henry. I can assure you that Boris Johnson is no way popular in Scotland. In fact, he's not even popular amongst the Scottish Conservatives, either here at Westminster or in Holyrood. Actually, it's really important for politicians to find consensus where they can so that we can deliver for our constituents and for the public more generally. And it's very difficult to see how you can support a Prime Minister, a government, or a party that has allowed that person to corrode our overall principles and democracy.
All right. Wendy Chamberlain, Liberal Democrat MP for North East Fife. I'm going to let you get back to strategizing and plotting, okay? And planning your new agenda. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night to you on Times Radio.